I'm Batman. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm Steve and today I have 3 helmets that I struggled to make. But first I would like to take a minute to thank everyone who liked, comment and subscribed to my first video, low effort 3D printed helmets. It helped the channel grow so much and I couldn't be more grateful. And if you haven't seen it, I'll leave a link up there. Right, so it's not all plain sailing in the world of 3D printing helmets, and today I'd like to discuss how I solved the challenges that I encountered along the way, and best of all, no sanding. The first helmet we're going to talk about today is the Flash, and I got this file from do3d.com and it comes in textured and non-textured versions, and I decided to go with the textured version because I think anything with texture looks far better. It also covers the layer lines, so win-win. So then I went through the sizing process of getting it to fit my head and printed it out. And are you ready for a laugh? It came out a little bit too small, but somehow I managed to get my head in it anyway, and then I got it stuck. And then I spent 20 minutes trying to get that helmet off my head. And no joke, I honestly thought I'd have to wear it to work the next day. So after I got free of my prison, I jumped back into the slicer and scaled the helmet as big as my printer could manage. But it was far too big for my head, but at least it didn't take me 20 minutes to get it off this time. In the end, I printed this helmet out 4 times. It either didn't print properly, or it was too small to fit on my head, or if I printed it larger, it just didn't sit right on my head. So I just wasn't happy with it. So in the end, I settled for the middle ground. This just fits on my head, but also there's a little bit of room. It's not perfect, but what my problem was is that this helmet curves inwards. It like tapers inwards. So if I can show you right here on this part here, on these parts here, from here to here, it tapers inwards. So that was the problem I was having. What I did to get around the problem was I stuck a massive bit of foam in the back. So when I wear it, it pushes my head forward and it looks better. Well, I think it looks better at least. I printed the side pieces off in gold PLA. They just snap on. That was the easiest part of this whole build. And they actually go on really nicely. And I think they look pretty good. And then the jaw just snaps on like that. The jaw I didn't have any problems with. It was just this main bit, and I know I could have split it up and cut it into pieces and then added magnets and put stuff, but I didn't want to do that. I just wanted the solid helmet. I wanted one whole print, so I didn't want any layer lines. And the thing is, if you print out something with texture, I think it's always better to have it as one solid piece, because then you get a continuation of the texture. Because if you have to sand anything, you just lose all that texture, and I just wasn't happy with it. So this jaw piece takes a total of 16 magnets, and then watch me struggle putting this on, because this it isn't perfect, as I said, but it is a tight fit. Right, now the jaw snaps on nicely, and with that big bit of foam, it pushes my head so that my eyes are perfectly in the place where they're meant to be. Otherwise, it just looked like it was a bucket on my head. So there's the side view, and in the end it did turn out really good. So it is a good helmet, and I really like the texture details on it, and I'll give you a closer look at it in a minute. But the whole way that this helmet sits now, I do think it actually fits really nicely. That big bit of foam in the back makes it look like a proper tapered fit. So that's the Flash helmet. I attached the big bit of foam with hot glue and I think it really worked well. But now the problem was not getting it on, the problem was getting it off, and it is a bit tricky to get it off. You just gotta kind of like pull it out a little bit. See, it's a struggle to get it off, but that was the tightest I could get it without having to deal with getting it stuck again, I guess, because I didn't want to go to an emergency room or try and cut it off my head myself, because imagine the whole thing of like, you know, you go into the emergency room with a Flash helmet, they're like, oh, what are you here for? Well, I was trying out a new hobby, and yeah, it just got a little bit out of hand, maybe, I don't know. So it was a little bit of a nightmare, but in the end I got there. Next up, we have the iconic Batman helmet you saw in the intro, and I honestly think that is the stupidest thing I've done, on camera at least. So if you made it this far into the video, write "I'm Batman" in the comments and give the video a like. So this helmet file is from do3d.com. I'm not sponsored, I just really like their files. But the problem I had was this back piece was too large for my printer, and I know I could buy a bigger printer, but I don't want to do that. So I had to basically accept the inevitable, and I had to cut it along here. It's not super noticeable, but it's still there, and I'm not exactly happy with it, but you gotta do what you gotta do, because without these ears, then I don't think it's very Batman. On the side here, I printed these pieces out in gold PLA I had lying about and wanted to use up, and I actually think they make the helmet look kind of cool. It's that pop of colour that you don't necessarily get with Batman. The fitment of this helmet, when I was wearing it, there's a ridge created by connecting the two pieces together on here. So what I did was put a bit of foam here and a bit of foam on the inside of this one as well, and that made it a lot more comfortable to wear. And getting the fitment right, I used a big block of foam at the back here to push my head forward so it fit nicely. Other than that, it went a lot smoother than the Flash helmet, and I couldn't be happier. This was printed out in matte black PLA and requires 32 magnets to connect together. This piece here is a little bit smaller, or seems a little bit smaller, because they're both the same size. So if you've got to stretch this one over the other one to get it to fit together. But once you stretch it, it doesn't break it or anything. It's actually quite robust. But yeah, to get it to fit together nicely, you do have to like fit it a little bit. But other than that, I think it turned out really good and was considerably a lot easier than the Flash helmet. So there we go. Moving on to the next one. So I recently been playing the Spider-Man Miles Morales game, and that inspired me to make the helmet. So I went over to do3d.com and found the exact one from the game, and that got me super hyped for the project. So let me show you how I sliced it. So I've loaded up the file in my slicer and I've been playing around with it for absolutely ages, and I could not get it to basically say that it would print properly. I kept on getting the message that it's too large to fit on the printer, it exceeds the boundaries, and I could not understand why, because it did fit in the whole area. So what I did was to limit the amount of supports that I needed. I blocked in all this area to basically say that you cannot use supports here. The software tries to put a support in between all this little texture, and I didn't need it because it doesn't need to be supported. So for anyone who hasn't used Bamboo Slicer, or any other slicer for that matter, the blue parts are what I want supports on, and then the red parts are where I don't want supports. So I just used the software to paint in all this red area, and it worked out fine. And I was like, okay, so I can lessen the supports. It was fine. And then I still kept on getting the message that it was going to exceed the boundaries, and I was like, well, it's clearly in. And what it was I had to go over to the support tab. I had to change the tree supports to manual, and then go down here to tree support branch diameter and change it from 2 to 1.5, and that basically made the supports smaller so it fit on the build plate. I also changed the tree support branch angle to 40, and then we slice it. After making the change to the tree support branch diameter, it made that message go away, and I was able to print this out properly. So if you're ever having problems with your helmet not fitting, it might not actually be the helmet that is the problem. It might be the supports that are just over and it's not able to print them. So you might be getting that issue, and that was my issue. Was the helmet was fine, it was just the supports were over. So there's a tip for you, and yeah, this printed out perfectly after that. So when I first printed this back piece out, I printed it like this, and it required a ton of support on this side here and this side here. And I was like, oh yeah, it'll be fine, they'll snap off easily. They did not snap off easily. They ended up getting fused to the part, and as I was trying to break them off, I ended up breaking the piece. So in the end, I had to change the support type. I laid it down like that, and I changed it to normal, auto, and snug, and then that printed out fine. The eyes didn't give me a problem. I just oriented them like that. I pressed the size option and I scaled them to 104%, and then I pressed slice, and they printed out perfectly after that. They took 5 hours and 53 minutes to print. These mesh eyes were also super easy to print. I placed them on the build plate like this, I did have to enable normal supports and press only on build plate, because otherwise well, I'll show you. So if I slice it like this, then they end up surrounding the entire part, and they're just going to be an absolute pain to remove. So that is what I was dealing with. So by pressing only on build plate, I then sliced them again, and they came out a lot better. There was a lot less supports, and I didn't have to worry about these little holes getting covered. Before I say anything, look how sick these look. I'll give you some time to appreciate, don't worry, I'll wait. Enough time? Right, let's get into it. This helmet turned out absolutely amazing, and I can't tell you how happy I am with it. The print quality is just absolutely outstanding, and the overall detail on the texture, mind-blowing. So what I did after we finished printing this was I used a 00 brush and went over all the lines with Vallejo Game Color Bloody Red, and it actually took me less time than the Spider-Man helmet, the OG Spider-Man helmet, and the result is, oh my god, chef's kiss. I love this helmet, and it's one of the ones out of all of these helmets that you've seen in this video so far that I am blown away by. The first two, they were alright, but this one is absolutely amazing. So this helmet is printed out in pieces like you've seen, and this is all held together with magnets. They all come off like that, and they all sat back together. The back comes off like that. That is a total of 42 magnets, and honestly, they go together really nicely, and it's a real nice strong fit. The magnet size is 8x2, and I am just blown away. I don't know if you can see the texture, but the line work, I feel like I'm getting better. I've done 3 videos now where I've had to paint in lines of this detail, and yeah, I think I'm definitely getting there now. And the amazing thing about this, in the other Spider-Man helmet, the eyes here, I can see out of them plain as day, not an issue. The other ones, they got foggy and further in where my eyes actually were. So the only thing left to do now is try it on. There is no foam needed on this, it fits perfectly. So let's give it a go. There is breathing holes in the actual helmet file, so you can breathe, and it fits my head absolutely perfectly, and yeah, absolutely love this helmet. So there we have it. Thanks very much for joining me on this 3D printing adventure. I believe it's important to share the losses as well as the wins and have a little fun along the way. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, get subscribed and hit that bell icon so you can stay up to date with my latest projects. Comment below if you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, and of course, happy printing, and I'll see you in the next one.